Welcome, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Hope you guys are good. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Jon Tallinger. I'm the Chief Growth Officer here at Class Valuation. Fortunate to be joined by two great panelists today. Our Chief Innovation Officer, Scot Rose. Scott, welcome.
Thank you, JT.
You look very sharp today. I didn't get the memo on the nice sport coat and all. I feel underdressed.
Occasionally.
Yeah. And we've got Justin Alexander, who is a Director of Collateral Strategy and Innovation at Fannie Mae. Justin, welcome.
Thank you very much. I didn't get the memo either. Scott's showing us up.
I mean,
normally I show up in a flat brim hat, so surprise you guys.
If you ever go skiing with Scott, then you can be prepared to really get shown up. So, all right, I'm going to kind of jump in here. So thank you all for joining us. Like we mentioned, before we jump in, at the end of today's roundtable, we're going to, about the last 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to do a Q&A session. So if you have any questions you want to ask, go ahead and put them in the Q&A box. It should be a Q&A chat box at the bottom, and we will answer as many as we can in the final 10 or 15 minutes or so. So the topic today is desktop appraisals. I think we've all been hearing for years that the appraisal and valuation space is ripe for change, but I think we're finally at that tipping point where it's a reality, and the future of where appraisals and valuation are going, it's changing very, very quickly, and we're starting to rely far more heavily on technology and innovation. So we're finally at that point of this is a reality, and this is really the future of where the space is headed. Just briefly, here at Class Valuation, just a few weeks ago, we launched a 48, right before Christmas, we launched a 48-hour desktop program for conventional single-family purchases. It's been a huge success. Even though appraisals generally right now, they're getting completed faster than they were a year ago because the market's slow. We're still talking 5, 6, 7 days or more for a traditional appraisal on a purchase. On the 48-hour desktops, we're consistently seeing them in 2 days or less, which has been a huge selling point for the brokers and the loan officers that have been using them, because they're using that as a selling point to go back and get more purchase business out of their real estate agent partners. So huge differentiator if that's what you guys need in this market. Anything certainly helps. So without further ado, already introduced our two participants, Scott and Justin. And welcome, gentlemen. We're going to kick things off. So we're gonna kind of start out jumping in, and I have a couple of questions I'm gonna hit and let Scott and Justin kind of bounce around. We're gonna start talking a little bit about desktops and hybrids. First off, in either of you can jump in on this. What is a desktop appraisal? What's a hybrid appraisal? How are they different? And most importantly, how can a desktop or hybrid appraisal benefit loan originators?
You want me to jump in, Justin, and then you can kind of tack on?
Sure. Sounds good.
So, one thing that's important to point out is that today with desktop, we're essentially using a closer to a hybrid process. And that's because the marketplace generally doesn't have all the information necessarily required to support the desktop product, which is in policy now. Both Fannie and Freddie have supported that product, and on different loan criteria, you will see eligibility to utilize the desktop product. And so that allows us to do the 48-hour process on these purchase transactions, but we still have to send someone out into the field to gather information on the appraiser's behalf, similar to how we would in a hybrid process. What's exciting to me is that as the market continues to adapt over time, we believe this information will be captured at the time of list with real estate agents as they learn the benefit of capturing this information up front. And there's probably a lot of opportunities with the different products that we'll cover today, Justin and I together, that fall outside of desktop as well. But then you're starting to talk about 24-hour and less purchase appraisals when that data is readily available upfront for folks to use in this process. So it's pretty exciting as we all work to decrease cycle times in the overall mortgage process and really create more and more efficiencies for our stakeholders that are involved. And so we're excited to leverage these tools and the various options that the GSEs and the folks at Fannie are bringing to the table as we continue to modernize and really provide a better experience overall for all of our partners out there originating loans and selling real estate transactions. Justin, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, the biggest difference in the desktop and the hybrid is that the desktop technically does not require a physical inspection of the subject property. The appraiser can use data that they have available online or through other resources to complete the desktop appraisal. Now, that the requirements that we have do include the floor plan, and that presents the conundrum that the industry has with our current requirements is there's not a huge database of floor plans out there. So there, theoretically, there does have to be some type of inspection performed or technology capturing the floor plan to allow the appraiser to complete the desktop. The hybrid, the difference in the desktop and the hybrid is the hybrid does require a full interior exterior inspection. It can be performed by a third party. And that data is captured in a standardized way and delivered to the appraiser for them to complete the hybrid process. So, when we released our desktop policy in April of last year, we knew that the requirement of a floor plan was going to create some challenges in the industry, but we were aware of technology similar to what Class has and others has that can produce that floor plan quickly and accurately with a phone or with a machine. So we were comfortable in leaving that requirement in. And while adoption has been somewhat low with the desktop, we do think that we do see it growing, and we think it'll continue to grow, as Scott mentioned, as people start to include that floor plan and other components as part of the listing or captured up front in the process.
Yeah, I think I
like
could say
go ahead,
tag on to that from an appraiser standpoint. Scott and I both used to spend time in the field as appraisers. Important thing to realize is that the appraiser, no matter what, has to have the right amount of information to be able to create a credible report. So that's where having an accurate, reliable floor plan is a huge play.
Well, and we like to talk a lot about this as well. And I think some of the early lack of adoption, maybe when people first started thinking and trying to utilize this product, is that they may have ran into some poor experiences where they tried to order the product, but the information wasn't available out there. It caused further delays, or maybe real estate agents and others were worried the appraiser wasn't getting full insight into that property, and they really wanted to get them out there, which is why Class believes so strongly in 3D scanning technology and creating the digital twin, which is all tools that can be utilized to support the listing, as well as generate the supplemental information Justin was talking about, detailed floor plans, the photo and the image requirements associated to desktop, which are very similar to a 1004, front rear street of the property, all the major rooms in the home, living spaces, bedrooms, bathrooms, et cetera. And then really to support the appraiser, that they have enough information to derive the credible results. And the more comprehensive amount of information we can capture at the time of list, the more viable these products are to use without having to send someone in the field to capture that info. But for today, we go ahead and send someone out similar to the hybrid process to ensure that appraiser has everything they need and we don't run into those pitfalls, which is why we're able to, as JT mentioned, average less than 48 hours on our desktop product today.
Yeah, so common theme that we've heard from many lenders right now. The tricky thing is, I think everyone would like to see more adoption and see a more efficient, more innovation-based process. But common theme that we're hearing from a lot of lenders right now is that appraisals aren't really a problem right now. We're in a higher rate environment, and there's significantly lower, significantly less loan submissions. So what's the incentive? Like, why should originators utilize desktops right now as opposed to just continuing to utilize the standard traditional 1004 appraisal products?
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Justin. Yeah, please.
No, I mean, we still have a fundamental challenge in the appraisal industry, and I'm an appraiser. The fundamental challenge or fundamental issue is we do not have a lot of new appraisers coming into the profession. There's a lot of initiatives underway to try to address that, but we, in a normal market, there is an appraiser shortage, and there's not enough appraisers to complete these things on a quick basis. And we know, I've been in this industry long enough to know that it's cyclical, and it will change, and there will be a time in the future where there is a lot more volume, and those traditional appraisal turn times will increase dramatically. And our hope is that we have these products, some of these alternative products available, messaged through DU, so that when that does happen, the industry can really, really start to shift. And the advantage to using them now is you start to build out capability, and you operationalize, you find areas that you can optimize and make better. So when the market does turn, you're ready to go.
I completely agree with everything that Justin just said. And I think the additional things to consider is really, we've been working with these products now for over 2 years in pilot with great partners and folks like Fannie and others, and measuring very closely all of the results derived from utilizing these new ways of obtaining valuations. And really across the board, everything is better. So there's incentive to use them right now. You're rarely going to get a 2-day turnaround time in a traditional product for purchase transactions to really decrease that cycle time. Furthermore, we see significantly less revision rates on the back end, which just takes away and defrictions the overall process. Less underwriting conditions. We've seen greater than 80% reduction in underwriting revisions coming through the digital process. We see less requests for reconsiderations coming from homeowners and real estate agents and loan officers. It's 65% reduction in that arena. So overall, when you use tools like 3D scanning and you're able to capture such a comprehensive amount of information, and by the way, it's standardized. We send 5 people out, we get the same 5 results. So there's a lot less room for error in data collection from the property, as well as integrating it into the overall appraisal process, reducing in other errors and downstream issues that may arise. So literally every single experience is better in the digital program. So in my mind, there's full incentive to use them today, even before we run into another capacity crisis, forthcoming.
Yeah, and that was kind of my next question I was going to hit on is, we all have, recency bias, but a lot of times we also have short memories too. We forget how bad it was. I mean, industry ran into a major apacity issue in, 2021 and even some early parts of 2022. We were at a spot where you guys all remember, appraisals in many markets, it was taking 2-3 weeks just to get an appraisal done in a market that normally you're used to getting, 6 days. So, the question that people ask me is, hey, will that ever happen again realistically? And can desktops, hybrids, can those help to keep that from reoccurring? And I think we already know, we think the answer is yes, because I think we're bifurcating the process. We're making the actual role of the appraiser more scalable. They're not spending time out in the field when they can actually sit at their desk and do the analytical part of the report. But anything else to add on to that in terms of how it's going to, help eliminate that capacity issue that we've had in the past?
Yeah, I mean, at my previous employer, we did a study with some staff appraisers that we had, and we estimate that appraisers spend somewhere in the range of 30 to 35% of their time driving to and from and doing an inspection of a property. An appraiser's core competency is market analysis, writing commentary, explaining adjustments, and ultimately coming up with the value of the property. And to the extent that we can allow appraisers to really focus on their core competency, we do think that it will alleviate some of the strain that we saw not too long ago.
Yeah, I can say, real quickly as an appraiser that's I've used this analogy so many times, but it continues to sort of ring true. When you go to the dentist's office, you go in and who cleans your teeth. It's not the dentist. The dentist doesn't come in and, you know, get in there with the floss and the pick. That's the oral hygienist. They do their portion, and then the dentist comes in for what we would essentially say in the appraisal world is what is their highest and best use. The dentist actually comes in and looks over your x-rays, looks at the specific issues there, and it's the best utilization of their time, and that's the way that we've sort of looked at this. That's the parallel that we're drawing for this process as well. So
agreed. Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead, JT.
So talking about the stakeholders involved in the loan process, you know, the borrower, the originator, the real estate agent, the lender. How do desktops affect the different stakeholders that are involved? How will it affect them? How would it potentially be different for them than what we traditionally see?
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, you know, I think first of all, you know, some of the basic concepts, the appraiser not showing up at the property, visiting, talking to the folks that are there, getting used to understanding that we're now using more technology and things of that nature to be able to collect that information, but ensuring that they understand that when technology is used in this process, the appraiser is still getting full visibility, transparency, and an understanding of that property in a virtual environment. It also ensures that all the data that's captured, now the appraiser is basing their opinion off the data that's being provided to them. And there's really no control of how you're presenting that property downstream. It becomes a exercise of generating values based off of a much more comprehensive and transparent process, which is a lot of the reason also why, you know, as we talk about racial bias and how in the appraisal process, how this can add to further mitigation and support to you know, improve our profession as we go forward in that way, both separating the appraiser from the environment as well as having full comprehensive amount of information, what we call source of truth data, right? And really getting to a much more detailed way of capturing property information and standardized, so we get a consistency in the way that we capture property information. And then, like I mentioned earlier, it really does create a better experience for everyone when you look at the data, when you look at the results. We've done tens of thousands of these to this point, and every single KPI tells us this is an improved experience across the board.
Yeah, I mean, we have hundreds of thousands of these desktops and hybrids. We've compared them to the traditional appraisal every which way that you can, and by all measures, they perform very similar, if not better in some areas than the traditional appraisal. And then I think an important thing to note that Scott touched on briefly is just the appraisal bias issue. It's been a big industry-wide topic for the last year or two. You know, removing the appraiser from the interaction with the borrower. Not to suggest that all appraisers are biased towards minorities, but you just remove that question. If you have to the extent that we can create more objective property data capture with technology and remove that interaction between the borrower and the appraiser, we do think that mitigates some of the racial bias issues that we've seen in the industry.
Yeah, I don't think I can't reiterate enough how much standardization of data is a huge deal. I can tell you from an appraiser standpoint, just human nature. If we sent 5 or 10 different appraisers out to do an appraisal on a specific property, you know, we're going to get generally a relatively small, you know, a narrow sampling of results, but in terms of the sketch itself, realistically, if you sent 10 different appraisers to a house, I would be shocked if you had, you know, more than 2 or 3 appraisers who came in on the same number. This, you know, technology now is allowing us to essentially standardize that. And the other tricky thing is, as an appraiser, you guys know, you know, everyone who has who's a homeowner, their house is, you have your assessor in whatever municipality you live in, and the assessor, I mean, it's crazy here in Metro Detroit. every different municipality that you go to as an appraiser has some different methodology as to how they came up with the gross living area, the square footage of the house. And in a lot of instances, that assessor was never actually stepped foot inside the house. So it's really very difficult for them to get a true, accurate measurement on what your house actually is, because they haven't been inside. They don't know where there's a 2-story foyer or something like that. So this is a big step in terms of getting things standardized and getting the data to be continuous. So totally. Justin, I want your take on this, and Scott as well. So I know, there's been a lot of, we've all heard of, pilot programs and beta programs that, lenders have been doing with GSEs, that utilize hybrids. Desktop products now, are they only available in those programs? Or are they essentially available for everyone right now?
Our desktop offering is available to everyone right now. There's a certain eligibility box that's listed in our selling guide, that there is a message that brokers and lenders would see coming through DU to say that it's desktop eligible. In those cases, I believe today in some cases, there's an additional message saying that a traditional appraisal is also acceptable, something along those lines. Just know that if you do receive a DU message that says desktop is eligible, that's perfectly acceptable with us. We're messaging you that so that you can take advantage of it if you want to, or if you can. What else was I going to say? Lost my train of thought there. Go ahead, Scott.
Does it on the findings? Does it so it will show up? So yeah,
show up.
I guess what we really want to know is, like, the loan officer who's listening right now. We've got 100 and 150 in right now. They want to know, how do we go and how do we know if a loan's eligible, and how do we move forward with that?
You can see our eligibility criteria in our selling guide. It'll also be messaged through coming through DU. So it'll say desktop appraisal eligible. We do intend, as we begin to introduce more of these alternatives into our selling guide policy and out of pilot, it introduces more options that are going to be available. We do intend on making it to where inside of DU that we're messaging back one option. So where today you might see 2 options, in the near future you might see 3 options. We do intend on kind of creating a waterfall of what we think is the best option for you, and message that accordingly.
Nice. Scott, anything else you want to add?
JT, yeah. I would just say that, as these products become available and adoption is, a little bit on the lighter side right now, and as Justin mentioned, there could be some confusion. It will say in the DU messaging, that it obtained in 1004 appraisal, but if you continue reading through the information, it will show you that desktop is an option, and that's what you can key in on. And in my mind, as we're in the beginning, part of these programs becoming policy, it gives you a competitive advantage to utilize them now, if you believe that speed and quality are a benefit to you and your practice, in terms of how you can support your partners, real estate agents, borrowers, et cetera. And these products are there to use for that purpose. We know that they offer an improved experience. And so it's, in my mind, that's the benefit for the stakeholders to get in there now, start using them, because more and more as time goes on, these are going to become common practice. And this is going to be a common solution that we're going to see in the marketplace. And it gives you the leading advantage right now to get in there and use them today.
So right now, my understanding is that they're essentially only available for purchase transactions. Do we see at some point, and we know there's certainly not many rate and term refis going on right now, but there's certainly cash out refinances, and at some point we'll be back to a environment where we'll see more rate and term. Justin, do you see pathway or does it make sense at some point for refinances to be included as well, or is this more of a purchase type deal?
No, we launched our desktop product, purchase only up to 90% LTV. That's what we went out of the gate with. We're aligned with Freddie Mac on that. We have what we have been testing in pilot. I could tell you with our hybrid, it has included both refi and purchase. In fact, in pilot, it mirrors our selling guide on a traditional 1004. So it goes all the way up to 97% LTV on that hybrid. We're working through kind of what that looks like moving forward into our selling guide. We do want to make sure that we do believe that there are loan types and property types where a traditional appraisal makes sense. So we are working on, what could we potentially isolate upfront in the logic to drive to a traditional appraisal when it's a higher risk, it's a higher risk loan for the lender and for us as the investor.
Gotcha.
And really,
ahead,
JT, the way that like we mentioned earlier, the way we handle desktop today is very hybrid oriented. Over time, desktop was designed for purchase because we expect that there's information more recent and readily available that's been produced, with the listing itself. Whereas in refinance transactions, you might have a little bit more dated information that's out there and readily available and from third-party sources to gather. So the hybrid process makes a lot of sense in those arenas. And as Justin mentioned, it might expand the eligibility criteria as well for a broader population of loans eligibility.
Yeah, I think our goal is to get these products out there available to the industry. See what challenges people have with operationalizing them, and then we'll tweak as we go, and may even tweak depending on what's going on in the market. We may, in a really stressed high volume market, maybe we drive some more volume to some of these alternatives. So I think right now the goal is just to get these out there, get them in our selling guide, get people used to what they are and how they work, and then we'll tweak as we go.
Nice. I'm gonna pivot real quick here because I'm gonna say it's like a magic word. When you want to get a loan originator's attention, you just got to go appraisal waiver, and it gets them to perk up pretty quickly. So technology not only is having and innovations having an impact on your traditional appraisal products, but also appraisal waivers. So first off, and Justin, maybe you can kick off this first, but what's going on with appraisal waivers? We know Freddie Mac rolled out ACE plus PDR, which is different. There was one. We're going to get to the questions that came through from the audience in a little bit, but one of the questions was asking are desktops and ACE PDR the same, which clearly this is a good opportunity for us to explain some of the differences. But so Freddie Mac rolled out what they call ACE plus PDR, which is property data report. So Justin, you being from Fannie Mae, is Fannie Mae going to launch a similar product? And overall, what do you see the effect of waivers on loans going forward? How do you see that playing out in the near and long-term future here?
We are working on a similar product to the ACE plus PDR. So let me just kind of explain what that is. What that is upfront at loan application, we would, and Freddie does, offer the waiver contingent upon a successful delivery of a property data collection or property data report in Freddie's case. We are working on an option there and expect to roll that out this year. As far as what's happening with appraisal waivers, we've seen the appraisal waiver volume decrease significantly. That's not anything that we've done on our side internally. It's really market driven. So your appraisal waivers are get the highest rate on your refinance transactions. There's not a lot of refinance happening, so appraisal waiver rates have gone way down. I would just say that with our the new product that we're going to be launching that's similar to the ACE plus PDR, there are a lot of scenarios that cause a loan to fall out of our traditional appraisal waiver. things like property that was in a disaster area. So we feel really good. We have a prior appraisal on the property. We feel really good about the value that the lender is inputting, but it's been in a disaster area and we don't know if that property is standing or not. Those types of loans would be ripe for this new thing, which is offering a waiver, and then you go get a property inspection. Our hope is that that would be significantly cheaper than an appraisal. It does give us a current view of the property just to assure that it's still there and in good condition. So I don't think you're not going to see this new product that we have is not going to be a retraction of our traditional appraisal waiver. It's going to be an expansion of.
Any clue? I don't know if you're allowed to say this or not. Any clue when you think your version might roll out?
I'm hopeful sometime in the Q2 timeframe, but there's a huge body of work that we're working on now to get there. So that's my best guess today.
So really quickly, just to recap appraisal waivers. If you're a loan originator, in your mind, realistically, I think, well, just being self-serving, what you're looking for is best case scenario is appraisal waiver, full traditional appraisal waiver where you don't need an appraisal, which is great. But then there's been a lot of questions about, hey, does ACE plus PDR for Freddie at least, and when Fannie rolls out their similar version, should I go with the ACE plus PDR or Fannie's version of the waiver plus property inspection, or should I just get a full appraisal? Well, I mean, logic would tell you that most certainly you don't want to go get a full appraisal if you don't have to, because there's so many more variables that can come into play there. First of all, you're talking about time. It's going to, no matter what, it's going to take more time to get a full appraisal completed. And then you're dealing with value as well. I mean, depending on where you are in terms of your value, ACE plus PDR, that product right now is not value based at all. All it is essentially, it's a waiver, but they want, instead of just giving you the full waiver, they're saying, okay, we're going to give you a waiver, but we just want someone to go out and inspect the property and show us the pictures and show us what was observed at the property, so we can make sure that any questions that we have, the boxes are checked. And then the next case would be the appraisal. So I think there's just a lot of confusion in the market about that. So Scott, anything you want to touch base in terms of the waiver stuff we've been?
Well, maybe just to bring try to bring as much clarity here as we can, is that the common theme of all these products is data collection done by a third party, and it's very consistent. I know Justin might touch on this in a minute, but today Fannie and Freddie both have their own data collection requirements. But they're working together to align on a data standard. I'll let Justin cover that in more depth. But essentially, the data collection process is very similar across all these products, or if not identical, with the exception of desktop. Although we believe that at time of list, capturing the more robust comprehensive data set is the right way to go about it. It supports the appraiser. Who knows, maybe it'll support these other downstream products if they become eligible at some point in time where that data has now already been collected for an inspection-based waiver type solution. And so the consistency there is the data collection process. And if you think about it, our own Josh Livingston, I think, put this together. The easiest way to really visualize the change in these products is historically we've had waiver and we've had the full appraisal, right? And now we look at those as bookends. In between those two products now, you have an inspection-based waiver, which is like Freddie's ACE plus PDR, what Fannie's working on rolling out something some of their own. Then you have a hybrid, which is where a third party goes out and collects the data and information, same way they would for an inspection-based waiver, and instead present that to an appraiser. And there could be times where something is identified during the inspection process that would upgrade something from an ACE plus PDR to a hybrid. Or otherwise, some sort of outcome that came from that information, although rare, it could happen. And then you have the desktop appraisal, which that data can come from varying sources without sending somebody out into the field to collect. And the more information that we start to collect at time of list, the more viable that product will be without having to supplement it with a third party going out to do that data collection at the time of appraisal order. Real estate agents could actually use someone like Class to go out and capture that information at time of list, generate things that improve the marketability of that listing, virtual tours, HDR imagery, lots of information and more visual aspects of the home. But at the same time, the data set that's required to support these solutions could be captured and maintained in the MLS for appraisers to use downstream in the appraisal process. Hopefully that makes sense and brings some clarity to these products.
Awesome. We got a bunch of, so we have great audience. Thank you again for tuning in. We have at least 10, 11 questions so far in the chat here. So I'm gonna scoot to some of those. I think there's some really good questions here. Kicking off first, please walk through how to get the 3D scan at list. I don't know, Scott, if you want to give any explanation around that at all.
Absolutely. I mean, it's essentially real estate agents can order the product to utilize to support the listing itself instead of waiting for a downstream process to take place at the time of the appraisal order. And as I mentioned, that information can be used both to supplement the listing as well as to have all of the required data and information to support desktop. So when that property is, goes into a transaction, if it's eligible for desktop, that the data could be used from any appraiser, and you could be stored on the MLS to support that, so that that's readily available for those appraisers downstream.
Yeah, I think if we had if we were in an auditorium right now, we could see all of the audience, and we asked for a show of hands of how many of you have looked for that specific, how many have experienced that before, where they get to the point where, okay, everything else is done in the loan process except for they're waiting on the appraisal. People would raise their hands and be pretty furious, like, oh my God, that's the last thing we're waiting for is the appraisal. And so at some point down the road, I think all of us have kind of thought, hey, it would be great to have that inspection piece already done, so that when the loan is ready to go purchase, whatever it is, you can quickly just say, okay, this inspection piece is already done. And 48 hours, whatever it is, 24 hours, let's go and complete this appraisal with the data that we have already collected. So I think that could have a huge downstream effect once we get to that point.
Yeah, and the real estate agent has the control, right, with what information they want to present publicly and what they want to maintain the MLS privately, to just support the appraisal process. So they can kind of pick and choose which information they want to present on the listing for outward facing.
Justin, I have a Fannie question here, and you may or may not want to know the answer to this, but what kind of enhancement ratio for DU approvals is Fannie pushing for as a goal for the market?
I'm assuming that's asking, do we have a target in mind? So as Scott just mentioned, today we have an appraisal waiver and a traditional appraisal. Those are kind of the two options. We just introduced the desktop. Do we have a target in mind for these alternative valuation products? I think that we don't think that it's, first of all, we don't have a target, but we don't think that it's unreasonable to think that somewhere in the range of 50 to 70% of loans that we acquire coming to us with something other than a traditional appraisal. That's obviously, there's a lot of factors that go into that. The market is a huge driver for that, but we think that it could get there. And I don't know if that's in the next year. I don't know if that's in the next 3 years, but a lot of it's going to be determined by market adoption, tweaks that we need to make to it, but we think that it could be in that range.
So I know, Justin, you're from Fannie Mae. Scott, you may or may not know the answer to this, but you may have had some conversations. One of the questions that came through is, will FHA, VA, USDA adopt desktops or hybrids? Any news on or any updates on that at all? Or any conversations being had?
Obviously they're typically a little slower to follow, but they definitely have their eyes on all of these products and solutions. I do believe, and don't quote me on that, but I believe VA has allowed for desktop in their policy now, but we can double check on that and maybe send it out to the attendee list after. But unless Justin, the answer to that
I don't.
to validate it, but I know VA is going through some transitions, and I think that once they see these coming out, there's a higher degree of chance that we'll see these come through. But today they are not in their policy on the FHA side.
Got you. Okay.
We need our resident Jon Dingman on the line.
Yeah, our Chief Appraiser, Jon. We had an interesting question here, and I think I know what my take on this would be, but I think it's worth bringing up because I think you guys may have some good feedback on this. When can we realistically expect to eliminate the appraiser from the purchase process altogether? We have the technology. As mentioned, there are fewer and fewer new appraisers, attrition, and less new blood coming into the industry. In addition, have had a lot of unique properties where no appraiser would even accept the order. During the boom, a lot of appraisers only wanted to accept the easy ones. Total automation would eliminate the problem. So where do you guys see the appraiser long-term in this process?
Justin, you want to take that first?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any, it's not a working goal inside of Fannie Mae to eliminate appraisers. Our goal is to create an environment to where we can get the most objective data and accurate data possible. We believe that technology is going to play a big role in that. We also believe that there's probably always going to be scenarios where an appraiser expertise is needed. So a lot of it's going to come down to risk of the loan, risk presented by the borrower, and that's going to kind of drive which option we try to steer lenders to. But it's a tough question to answer, and I appreciate the question, but we're not working towards eliminating appraisers. We're working towards getting the most accurate, objective data that we can.
I'll just say really quickly, the demise of the appraiser has been grossly exaggerated. I think going forward, we everything that we're doing class internally is finding essentially more resources to make the appraiser's job easier, more efficient. But there's nothing that we're doing that is trying to eliminate appraisers. We have no, just from our side, I can't speak for whatever other stakeholders in the industry, but we are running our business as if appraisers are not going anywhere anytime soon. We're looking for ways to help make their job more streamlined, more efficient, and allow them to really focus on their highest and best use.
Yeah, I mean, we totally agree. We do believe that the role of the appraiser is going to look different. They may do things differently, and that's not that's a good thing. I mean, technology has caused all of us to have to reconsider things that we've done in the past. I mean, we're sitting here today with 125 people talking on a computer, and so we just think that the role that an appraiser plays may look a little different. Doesn't necessarily have to mean that it goes away completely.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to empower the appraiser and to continue to help make them be more relevant. The challenge is, like, some of the comments, JT, in the chat there, in the questions, is that, there are thousands and thousands of appraisal transactions done every day, hundreds of thousands done, throughout the year, millions. And it's the few that get most attention, that go the wrong way, that cause that friction, that cause that frustration. Appraisers, it's always good to listen. As we mentioned, all three of us are appraisers. We were just talking the other day about how we would all love to be able to complete these products at some point in our career and continue on. Love the appraisal profession, but it's important for everybody to bring value to the stakeholders in the system, so they don't want to eliminate the appraiser. Let's bring enough value and produce a product that creates value so that folks want it to continue to be part of the process. And we talked earlier with waivers, JT brought them up. Many real estate agents and folks out there in purchase transactions where waivers have been eligible have chose to go with a traditional appraisal product because they want the appraiser involved, because they see value in that appraisal in their transaction. And now we'll have more options to do that with the desktop, with the hybrid, with others, with traditional appraisals as well. But to continue to drive technology into the process, to empower the appraiser, to bring more value to our stakeholders is really the goal.
Great. One of our attendees asked. They said Scott mentioned something about merging the GSE data sets. Can we have Justin explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. So we developed our own proprietary standardized property inspection data set years ago. We've been testing that in pilot, in our hybrid pilot. So it's a very robust set of data. It's more comprehensive than any inspection I ever did as an appraiser at a home. It was really developed with the intention of, if this goes to a hybrid appraisal, let's give the appraiser anything and everything that they could possibly need to complete that hybrid appraisal. We've been testing that, as I mentioned. Freddie Mac developed their own property data standard that they've been testing in pilot as well. And what we've heard as we've learned in both of our respective pilots, lenders don't always know which investor the loan's going to go to when the loan is initiated. So as we think about moving these products out of pilot into policy, we just thought it was important that we begin to align our data standard to have one aligned GSE property inspection data set. So we're currently working on that. I don't have a time frame on when we expect that to be completed, but we're making good progress, and we think that that's going to happen in the near future.
One thing I would just add to that, JT, is that while that's in process, it's something that Class has solved for. We only need to visit the property once with our solution, and we can generate both data set requirements. So our solution is fungible today. I know that can be more challenging maybe for some others out there, but for our partners today, we do have a fungible solution across both data sets.
So God, I got to say, I'm impressed. There's some really, really good questions here. So we're trying to get to all of them, and any that we don't get to, we'll try to put together some responses to. There's also some questions that are asking for some actual process flows and things like that like a flow chart that shows all the appraisal product types, which we will work on putting together and try to get out to this audience. We do have the email list from everyone, so some of these we can send out to you after the fact. A couple other good questions that helps us to sort of pivot a little bit. So here's one, because we don't just have loan originators and processors. We don't just have people in the mortgage side, in the audience here. We do have some appraisers, and certainly, appraisers, this is a very important piece to their future, and they're curious. So one question from one of our attendees was, what do you say to the veteran appraisers who say that a desktop product is more risk for the appraiser and that they will ultimately be the scapegoat if the loan goes bad?
We disagree with that. There is specific language that we changed in the certifications and limiting condition, relieving the appraiser from that liability. So we were very intentional about the language that we put in there, and I would just encourage the person that asked the question to make sure you read through the new certifications on the desktop form, and then feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions.
It's a great response. I would also just add, from Class's perspective, that's why we're trying to also provide as much comprehensive information as possible. I mean, Class is a true believer in 3D scan technology and digital twins, which really give you the full ability to virtually inspect that property as if you were there. And to Justin's point, within the certifications and limiting conditions, all of the boilerplate, commentary is there to support you in that process.
So another kind of interesting question here. I'm actually looking forward to this answer because I've wondered some of this myself. Why are in-person comp photos required for traditional 1004, but not for the desktop product? If they were not required for the 1004, that alone would speed up the process. Also, when the appraiser doesn't continually drive the neighborhoods, we will not have the market area data not observed from just sitting at a desk. What about that? So they essentially are looking for, where do you guys see comp photos and whether or not those need to be actually physically inspected from the street or not?
The reason that we don't require them in the desktop appraisal is because we offer the desktop appraisal on lower risk loans, purchase only, 90% and below LTV. So we've reduced some of the risk there from our perspective, so we can reduce some of the requirements. The 1004 process has been around for a long time. Those are offered on loans all the way up to 97% LTV. So it's still a requirement there. I could see a day where that, the satellite imagery and the ability to, view neighborhoods from our computers is totally different than it was 15 years ago when I was doing appraisals. So I could see a day where, as satellite imagery gets updated on a more regular basis, as more and more technology is available, that could be something we take a look at. But that's the reason why it's not a requirement on the desktop versus the 1004.
Gotcha.
And then in terms, appraiser observing the neighborhood, again, the amount of data that's readily available, quickly available to an appraiser about a market is more robust than it ever has been. So while 20 years ago it might have been really, really important for the appraiser to be in that neighborhood and observe what's going on, I think that's been diminished somewhat by the data that's readily available today.
Yeah, I would add, especially where we are now in terms of, using market data to do the market analysis overall and understand market sectors based off of the data, and being extremely objective in terms of how we report on what defines those market sectors and market areas and market trends. Less about what's maybe visible from observation on site.
Gotcha. Yeah. So kind of another interesting question so obviously, we're not doing appraisals and loans in just, urban and suburban areas, but sometimes we get further out, rural properties, unique properties. One of the questions that came through is, how does this work in a specialized market? I work in Santa Fe, New Mexico. There's no cookie cutter properties here. Lots of unusual configurations, no standard properties per se. How is this affected, or is it not affected? How is it different in a market like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, what we're really trying hard to do is build out a spectrum of options that are aligned to the loan level risk. As I mentioned earlier, we do think there is probably always going to be a need for a traditional appraisal on certain loans and certain homes. So, in certain markets where homes are really unique, they may not be as impacted as some more conforming markets are with these alternative valuation products. That said, even a very unique property that doesn't conform to the area, a 60% LTV loan, that's low risk to everybody involved, and maybe it does qualify for, some type of alternative product.
Yeah, and depending on the tools that are used, it very well likely may be that the technology can bring all the information needed for that appraiser to be able to produce credible results. And ultimately, and Justin, you can chime in here, but the appraiser is still the one in control of that. If there was some sort of property that had some sort of attribute that really needed to get out there and get on site, they still have the flexibility to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree.
This is a good one for possibly some clarification. Michael had a question where he asked, do we think that the agent controlling what information is available to the appraiser really eliminates the bias? So I think I know the answer there, but I would leave it to one of you guys to answer. There may be some confusion as to where the real estate agent, what their role in this would be. Do they play any role in the scan of the property?
So, I mean, from our perspective, and then Justin, you can answer it from Fannie's viewpoint and policy, et cetera, but the technology is the key component there. The technology doesn't allow for the agent to control it in that fashion. And the amount of information that's required and how it's obtained is really the important aspect. And the more and more appraisers get comfortable and understand these technologies, the more you understand that they can't do that. I mean, I'll give you one example. Early on in these test and learns, you know, we did a test with our technology with one of the GSEs, 5 properties, went out there, scanned them all, gave the information back, and in the process, it was determined that a space was missed, right? One of the rooms was not scanned on one of the homes. And we were mortified. And when we reached out to say, hey, this is what happened, they said, how did you know that? You know, out of all the providers, we were the only ones that were able to capture that. And it's because of the 3D scan technology and the way that the mesh and the point cloud works to develop that property. We know where there's spaces of conduit running up through a property, let alone a whole room that's been missed. And so we can ensure that all spaces are captured and visible and present. And so the agents don't really have control over the technology generating these outcomes like floor plans and the data and the information, the imagery, et cetera. It can be validated that it's not been manipulated. And Justin, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the technology that we saw just 2 years ago, 3 years ago is totally different today than what it was then. And we continue to see it advance. And we ultimately believe that the technology is going to be the backstop. The technology will make sure that the person is at the right property. Nothing can be omitted or manipulated. And that, you know, the more and more that we see this technology advance and being used on more and more valuations, I mean, I think there could be a day where we just require it as part of policy that in order to do any of our valuation products, you have to use some type of machine generated floor plan technology, 3D scan, et cetera. Don't know if that's, you know, 2 years away or 5 years away or 10 years away, but we see it trending in that direction for sure.
Okay, so we're coming up on time here. There's certainly a ton of great questions. We did not get to them all. We're going to try to answer these questions. We'll try and do a quick, you know, we'll try to put together a quick summary and email it out to the group that registered and attended, sort of for the Q&A questions. The webinar has been recorded, and we will release it out, and we can send it out to you for, you know, to you know, circle back and watch it later and share it as needed. But I just wanted to kind of some closing thoughts. First of all, I wanted to thank all of our attendees who joined us. We had a great group here, some really good questions, and, you know, thank you, you know, Justin and Scott. Any closing thoughts that you guys want to offer? Justin first.
Yeah, well, I want to echo what you just said. Thank you all for joining. This is an exciting time for our industry. There's a lot of things that are really ripe for change. It's gonna take, you know, some work and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Some tweaks on our part, some tweaks on the industry part, but really excited about where we're headed.
Me too. Scott?
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more, guys. Just thanks for everyone for participating. Really looking forward to continue to drive the future of appraisal modernization. And I also think there's a lot more exciting things to come this year and in the years to come with continuing to leverage technology to improve this process.
Yeah, well, really appreciate both you guys. Great insights. We'll see. I mean, by popular demand, we may end up doing a couple more of these. So hang tight, and we'll keep you guys in the loop on those. Just a reminder, like I said, Class, we launched, you know, in mid-December, 48-hour purchase appraisal where we're using desktops, and we're essentially nationwide doing those in 48 hours or less. We're getting great results. So if any of you are interested in that, feel free to reach out. My email is really simple. It's just jt@classvaluation.com. Would love to answer any questions, or if there's a way we can help you out, or even do a lunch and learn or a demo for your team and any agents that you have. We would love to engage on that front. So thank you again, everyone. Really, really appreciate it. Looking forward to, you know, making some big things happen with you guys. And thank you again, Justin and Scott, for joining us.
Yep. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.